It's the I'm Not Your Lawyer show, brought to you by the Church of Blurk. It's the only immutable, verifiable religion. And if you believe in it, you're here tonight on a Friday night praying to the Bitcoin gods. And you're happy because Paul's here. Paul is the man. Paul Sztorc.
I think people, I think it's sort of like a roller coaster where, all the stress is like when it's going up and you're getting ready to say the name, and then once you just say the name, just mispronounce it and just get it over with. It's like just tear off the Band-Aid.
So bad.
It's just Sztorc.
Sztorc.
It's just a TS. But I just think, every now and then I think about just legally changing my name to like Smith or something.
See, but the thing is, I keep hearing Sports. Like the
well,
Schwartz. I mean,
like
instantly it's Mel Brooks and it's Spaceballs and
Schwartz is like respelled because it ends in like TZ, I think, or something, and like quartz. Those are like the correct spelling of like the Polish TS sound for anyone who cares. But that's the right way to like Americanize it. But my family just kept spelling it the same way. You know how it is.
Well, I mean, the original pronunciation of my last name was Leibrecht, but there was a shitload of spitting going on with that, and your voice gets really hoarse. So at one point, somebody said, "All right, well, let's just call it Cybert, and we'll be done." All right, we've got a really interesting show happening. Try to get a little bit more music going in the background. The interesting show we've been talking about is Ethereum. Is it a security or isn't it? And one of the things that we were getting to, and we were going to try to create what's very rare in the legal world. It's called a bright line test. All right. Everybody loves a bright line test because if you cross this line, you've definitely crossed over into this area, and then you know what's happened. But usually securities are not a bright line test world. All right. And everybody wants to point to Howie, and they think if I satisfy Howie, then I win, right? They think that the Howie test, giving of money under the management and control of others with the expectation of a profit. If I don't do that, then I'm not selling a security. But it's not that simple, all right? For example, in SEC v. Glenn Turner, which is a multi-level marketing campaign, Glenn Turner, which was the Dare to Be Great self-improvement tapes, right? Fake it till you make it, that guy. He used to do these tent revivals where he'd bring people in with rental cars that were these beautiful rental cars. He'd line them up outside the tent just to make people see how successful everyone there was. And his whole idea was make yourself look like you're successful. And if you do it long enough, people will believe that you're successful. And if they believe you're successful, then you will be successful because they'll start giving you their projects. Now, what's interesting is actually a guy named Robert Cialdini wrote a book called Influence.
Yeah.
And one of the 7 elements of influence is called authority. If you show up for a job looking like you are that job, like a police officer comes to your door in a uniform with a badge and they fit the description, then you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt of that authority. So Glenn Turner, he was onto something from an influence standpoint that if you look like you know what you're doing, then just fake it till you make it, and you're going to make it eventually. Now, what he was doing was getting people to sell his tapes, all right? So if you sold certain packages of tapes, kind of like an Amway structure, right? You sell this cleaning kit or that cleaning kit or this advanced cleaning kit, then you get more money. So what Glenn Turner was telling people was, hey, if you sell this package of tapes, tapes 1 through 16 instead of tapes 1 through 4, that got you a free ticket, and the person that bought it a free ticket to come to one of these shows. And then once they're at the show, don't worry, we'll take care of them, and you're going to make money off of that. Now, the SEC went after him, said, you're selling securities. And they said, this isn't an investment contract. What are you talking about? If anything, this is multi-level media. We're just selling varying degrees of tapes. He said, well, what you did is when you said, hey, between the person that was selling your tapes and you, when you said, go sell this, go do this, right? And when you bring that person back, we're going to take care of them and you're going to make money. So that person that was selling the tapes had to invest themselves in order to get in. So give them the money. do X, under the management and control of others, them at the show, they would make a profit. So they satisfied Howie in a really roundabout way.
Yeah.
And that's how these multi-level schemes where you were getting these triangle or pyramid schemes where you get different incentives at different points then became under the umbrella of SEC regulation, right? So the same old schemes, regulatory agencies looking at them, and it took them a while to kind of figure out how best to approach these things. And the reason I bring that up,
where the phenomena is actually happening,
right? And so
how to nail it down.
So when people ask me what's the line that we've crossed and where is it crossed and why hasn't the SEC gone after these folks yet, I go, it took them a while to figure out Glenn Turner.
Well, how long did it take to put it? Do you know how long it took? Years, months? You know, how long did it take? 5 years, 20 years?
I'd have to go back and take a look, but it wasn't like 2 minutes worth of time. You know, it wasn't.
All right.
It wasn't cut and dry. And the thing about coin offerings is that the SEC has to look at it. One, a lot of people say they got better things to do. They're not going to care about $1 million token sell here or $1 million token sell there. And the answer is no. They do care about it. They do care about it. And the reason why is that you're soliciting money from the public. It's part of their job. All right. I was at a conference in Las Vegas where they wanted me to talk about current cases. And there was a case in San Francisco where one of the Silicon Valley folks said they'd only raised like $5,000, but they had done so through an app and on a website. And the SEC came in and just dropped the hammer on them for $5,000, right? But the reason they could do that, it was part of their cookie cutter case. They didn't have to take effort to make up law, right? They could just say A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, if you check 4 out of 7 boxes, then you have failed. And
but
you have broken the law.
And so, you know, one thing to remember is that, like any attorney, me included, if our processes are filled out, we know how to argue it. We don't have to take a risk. We don't have to go into a court and try to explain to a judge something new. And most attorneys, they don't want to lose, right? Because if they lose a case, that means that they may not be marketable in their next job. Everybody wants to say, I've got 100% conviction rate. Every time I went into the courtroom, I got a conviction. When you're talking about a government prosecutor, they don't want to lose, because when they lose, then they take away their ability again to make money later, to get that judgeship later, to get those things. So from the
well, no one likes to lose. That's the other thing, of course.
Well, I've lost tons of cases, and my clients were perfectly happy with it, because during the administration of the case, we were able to get multiple goals accomplished that helped them move on past the litigation. For me, working with my clients isn't about winning or losing a case. It's about setting a goal of what needs to happen, and then we get there while we're going on. That's an aside. Now, with a regulator, with a state regulator, when I worked at the Oregon Department of Finance and Corporate Securities in the regulatory division and enforcement, we used to take what we knew were clear-cut cases of securities fraud. And we take them to the local district attorney and say, look, this is criminal action. Will you prosecute this case? And they'd look at it and go, but I've never done a securities fraud case before. I don't know how to run it. And we'd say, don't worry, we'll support you. We'll be there. We'll hold your hand. And they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this.
We'll send you.
I'm afraid, right? And it's like, we'll even write the script for you. We'll tell you the questions to ask. We'll hand you the exhibits. And there's like, well, we don't know how to do it. People fear change. And so, regulatory or prosecutorial attorneys, if they don't understand the case, they don't understand it. 9 times out of 10, they're doing DUIs. They're doing rape, they're doing, whatever petty crime it is, selling weed, selling coke, whatever. And it's a checklist. ICOs is not a checklist, right? Because you've got this obscure thing. You've got this obscure thing.
Yeah, you actually would have something to argue over if it went to court. Something very complex.
And if you lose it, the first time, you fuck it up.
Precedent. Yeah.
You fuck it up.
You blow it for everybody. No one wants to be that guy. Okay. No, that's very interesting. So this is hence the bright line thing.
Right.
Whereas, okay, so the bright line is almost a blessing and a curse, right?
Yes.
So it depends, right? Very interesting.
Right.
Okay.
So when you're talking about when people are like, oh, the SEC hasn't acted yet, so that's assent and it's been approved. You're like, yeah.
It certainly is interesting.
No, don't.
I mean,
don't get comfortable.
You understand you understand the feeling though, because it's been going on for a while, and there are the big consensus conference, and like there are these giant places, London, where Vitalik's got like a giant photograph of his printed out, and they have the Ethereum shirts, and they have all the stuff, and they have all the press. And
I need an Ethereum shirt. Oh, before I go too far, for appearing on the show today, Paul. Oh no. We're going to send you an official Church of Blurk shirt.
Church of Blurk. Okay, great. Thank you.
Get a Church of Blurk shirt?
I love getting all the shirts that I get for something. I have never thrown any of them away. I got all of them. I wear them all the time. I wear all the trophy T-shirt. I cherish them a lot.
So what I'm saying to the
I don't have an orange one yet, so that one's very orange.
That's Bitcoin orange. That's why.
Bitcoin orange.
It's Bitcoin orange and white. Anybody in the forum that can send me an autographed Vitalik T-shirt,
oh man,
I will send you a Church of Blurk T-shirt. You guys hear me? You hear what I'm cooking up? I want one. I may even send you some Bitcoin with it.
You know what I want? I want they printed out the giant for like DevCon or something. There's this giant like 20 foot by 40 foot poster of Vitalik Buterin's face. This is like a high resolution photo of him.
You mean like one of those fat head things, the NFL fat heads?
Huge. It's like a giant billboard, but it's like on like whatever, like plastic cloth. I want that. If anyone can figure out how to obtain one of those, please contact me. We'll figure out something we can do with it. It's so big. I mean, I don't even know how. I'm sure it costs a fortune to ship anywhere, but it's like. But I just think it's funny.
I'd go pick it up. I'd go pick it up in my truck. Rent a trailer. So the bright line, the line you shall not cross, otherwise you're definitely stepping into the securities world.
Well, you understand why people would want it, right? Because poor, laypersons, ignorant of the law, they're just like, they don't want to break the law. They're just, maybe they want to break it in an ambiguous way.
Whoa, hold on. You've met crypto people, right?
Yeah.
They do want to break the law. They don't give a fuck about the law. They're like, fuck banks, fuck the law, fuck the regulators. I mean, that's their whole deal.
Yeah.
So, right? I mean, but I get it.
No one wants to get caught breaking the law, I guess. I don't know.
All right. So,
but you understand the draw.
Yes.
People would want the line because people want to understand things too. They want things to be clear.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes.
Now, and you may recall, I said it earlier today, and this is something that I wrote about in a blog for Reggie Middleton, and that what you need to really focus on when you're thinking about the product that you're putting out, if you're going to put out a product or a token offering, is what are you in the business of doing? Are you in the business of being in business? Or are you in the business of making money through other people's money? Okay? And if you're in the business of making money through other people's money, now you've subjected yourself to a regulatory arm. You're not doomed. You've just subjected yourself to regulation.
All right,
what that means is, if I'm in the business of being in business.
No, I think it makes. I thought it was very clear.
Hold on.
All right, let's do it.
Do you have one of these?
I'm afraid I don't.
That's an ultra coin.
Oh, you were cutting off part of it. Down a little. Yeah, there we go. Oh, look at that. Yeah, no, I don't have any Caucasius coins. And I remember I went to like Inside Bitcoins New York in like 2012 or something, and I really blew my opportunity to like buy some of those, and it's never coming back.
So this from Reggie Middleton represents his services. If I present this to him, he will give me an hour of his time. What's the difference there? Did you identify it? What do I get when I bought that coin?
Yeah, you prepaid for an hour of his time.
Yes, prepaid. What do I get when I buy an Ethereum token before there's any fucking software written? What do I get?
Yeah.
What do I get?
It depends on the work that they do between then and now, which is your point about control. That's that they have to do something. They have to.
When I get this, Reggie is in the business of being in business. He sold me something that already exists. His services already existed. Okay? So if you want to sell fuel to run your network, if that's your gig, right? You've created some blockchain 2.0 on the Internet of Things, and it's going to be driven by fuel because you have to do some sort of transfer in order to record something, and you're calling it fuel instead of value because it's a Bitcoin protocol and you can't register anything without some transaction being hashed, and it's blah, 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 blah. Whatever your reason is. And you have to have people have your stuff. Here's my suggestion. Just sell a fucking subscription.
Yeah, no.
Just sell a subscription.
Yeah.
Be Doge for fuck's sake. Just sell a subscription.
So this is funny because I thought we would be really confused, but I think we actually have kind of nailed a lot of stuff down about like why it's a bad idea to.
But scammers don't want to sell a subscription. They want to sell you their fucking token because they pre-mine. They pre-mined 400 million tokens, and they're just waiting for it to get on Poloniex or whatever deal, and then they're going to get it. It's going to pump, and they're going to dump it all, and they're going to walk away and go, "Whoops, we forgot to code it."
Yeah, of course. Well, it's funny because that's the probably the biggest reason why I was adamant that I would never do any of this stuff for my projects is because you're so unsure. I had like a very different reason. I was just like, the development process is very uncertain and it always takes longer than you think. There's always delays. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to like promise anyone anything and then like for there to be delays or people to be like upset or anything. I was like, I don't know, I'm just not going to do any of that at all. And but we now have we've sort of established that by taking someone else's, I like that phrase, taking money for the express purpose of like making money. Yeah. And that is, generating a above market return, using some operations. And I think that is interesting that, the selling the product before it's done, that is like a venture.
Of course. Now, when you cross over into Ponzi world, all right? Ponzi, who was a guy that
venture just doesn't exist at all, right?
No. Ponzi's venture actually existed. Ponzi was doing a arbitrage.
What do you mean the money-making part?
Well, so Ponzi was doing a money-making arbitrage, right, where he was selling
stamps,
postage certificates from Italy in the United States at a reduced rate. So that meant that you could buy Italian postage stamps less than you could buy American postage stamps, but the U.S. Post Office was honoring it anyway. So he'd found this little loophole.
Yeah, and I had heard that actually did make some money.
Oh, it was legitimate.
Viable.
He was actually doing it, and then so many people wanted to do it that he figured, well, shit, I can't actually go over to Italy and buy that many stamps. So he just started taking people's money in, and instead of buying the stamp, he just started paying out the returns. So new money would come in, and he would pay out old obligations with the new money, and that's where you get the term Ponzi scheme. You bring in new money. You don't actually do anything with it. You take the new money to pay off an old obligation, and then so long as you keep bringing in new money, you can continue to support that.
Well, and one would hope that Bitcoiners would be familiar with the Ponzi scheme by now. I think if you don't know by now, you're just.
I think the word Ponzi gets used too loosely. I think the word Ponzi just gets used to describe any type of thing that might be a little scammy, but. I'm not here to educate you on what a Ponzi scheme is. What I'm here to do is try, for the most part, explain is Ethereum a security? Now, Ethereum as Ethereum.
The crowd sale part was, I think, clearly established. But I don't know if once it's finished, is it autonomous enough that it's. I'm not saying that it.
No, it's not. It's not, right? Because I think if anybody right now, the fact that the Ethereum Foundation, the caretakers, if you will, all got together, all of them with an interest in the organization, all listed as part of the management team, can fork Ethereum any way they want to. regardless of people's investments, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but that's manipulation of a security. They manipulated a security.
Yeah, it's explicitly said it would do one thing, and then it did a different thing.
Right, and
you're not allowed to do if you're the.
So one of the things most people may not know is that in the subprime mortgage crisis, Bear Stearns and a couple other of the banks that held a bunch of the assets wanted to rehabilitate the loans. They wanted to rehabilitate the underlying mortgages so that they wouldn't go into default. And if those underlying mortgages didn't go into default, that meant that the default swap contracts that were being held by Paulson wouldn't mature.
Never matured, yeah.
Wouldn't have matured because you wouldn't have had the default. Now, Paulson got together with a couple of his buddies from Goldman Sachs and a couple of how would they say, a couple of hard pipe-hitting motherfuckers, right, that were lawyers.
Would probably say something like that.
And went walking into Bear Stearns' door and said, hey, if you try one moment to rehabilitate that underlying mortgage, what you're doing is you're manipulating a security. Because you sold us this security, this underlying fractionalized mortgage, which is a security. And if you fuck with it, you're manipulating that security, full well knowing that I've got this swap contract over here.
Exactly. They bet it would default, and they wanted to win the bet.
And Bear Stearns bet the opposite side. And if Bear Stearns went out and tried to manipulate that bet, Paulson said, I will sue you. I will sue you for everything you've got. I will end you. And Bear Stearns had to let them fail. And not a lot of people know that side of it. Okay? So with this, what happens with the DAO? Holy fuck, we died and everybody's freaking out. Wait, if we let this happen, people are going to lose $60 million.
No, it's a
and what people in the Ethereum community were saying, so the fuck what? Let it fail. This is immutable. Don't fork.
Right.
But what do instead? They manipulated the underlying security, Ethereum Classic. And what did Ethereum Classic say? Holy fuck, now we're Ethereum, we were Ethereum Classic. You've completely devalued and killed the value of our security, which is Ethereum. Now, for all of you folks out there listening that may have messaged me saying, is there a class action against Ethereum for the Ethereum Classic thing? Have I given you enough information to think if there is or there isn't? I don't know. Maybe. I'm just... They never should have fucked
if it
with
is a security, then which I think it is. I think we have talked about that, and then I think you could say that. I mean, you'd have to prove that Vitalik, I think, or that it was known or it was knowable that the hard fork would damage the value proposition or something, which I think you could. But I think wouldn't you have to demonstrate something like that? But to your point, I just brought up because I'm so fond of reading it, and it's just so lawyery and it's just so fun. The terms and conditions of the DAO, and it says very clearly. The very last part after the very last semicolon, to the extent you believe there to be any conflict or discrepancy between the descriptions offered here and the functionality of the DAO's code at 0xBB69Z whatever, etc., blah, blah, blah. The DAO's code controls and sets forth all terms of the DAO creation. So they have it in the DAO code that it says, like, if there's any unclear part about this, and that's just one part of many. There's a giant paragraph about this. It just repeats endlessly that this is all working as designed, and that's not even counting all the stuff on the Ethereum website about code is law.
Right.
Code is law. Code is law. Code is law.
Code is law.
Well, totally autonomous, whatever, etc. thing that they put everywhere, and so yeah, the DAO is a very interesting example of like this. Being much more like a traditional corporation that's just, I mean, it just is like that. It's very different from Bitcoin where the rules, where nothing is controlled. And I think the law, it should not, there is a case to be made that a certain set of laws can't and shouldn't apply to Bitcoin, but can and should apply to Ethereum. But I think it is an interesting question of like why they haven't. And you say that they're just waiting to try and figure it all out. And that they will do it later, and maybe you can shed more light on what that would be like. Like, will they go after? Is there like a statute of limitations, or like how would this? Will they only go after a few people, or will they wait until? Because I think the Ethereum project will end in kind of tears and stuff, and there will be upset people in the United States. And is that related? Right? Does it matter if there was, to what extent does intent matter? Because I think there's a lot of really good intentions in the Ethereum world, but I know that it's not supposed to normally matter, right? If you either break the law or you didn't. So there is a lot of confusion over like why it's not applying, and maybe it's just because things are confusing with Bitcoin and other things like that. So,
Well, we'll pick that up in the next segment
all
on
right.
what it might look like if the SEC went after Ethereum or any ICO that's doing the same thing. I'm Jason. I'm not your lawyer. I'm
Yep.
not. We're having fun. We're with Paul. We'll be back.
All right.